Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Leaks May. Here. Martin.
Here.
Pollica.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Piana.
Here.
And Mayor Coulter.
Here, thank you. And we have a quorum this evening. Next item of business, the new audio
microphones.
kicked in. New microphone. Is the approval of the agenda.
I'll move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Pollica. Any discussion on the agenda?
Chief Sullivan would like to add anything to the new firefighter.
Excellent. All right. And we'll put you first because I think County Commissioner Helene Zach is either going to be late or not make it. So we can slot you in there, and then if she comes later. So we'll put you first, Chief. All right. All right. Hearing no other discussion, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmembers Martin.
Yes.
Pollica.
Yes.
Piana.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. The agenda is adopted. And now moving on to presentations. And so, Chief, our Fire Chief Sullivan, you're going to introduce our brand new firefighter. Excellent.
Thank you. With great pride, I'd like to announce the newest probationary firefighter for the Ferndale Fire Department, Mona Marcabani. And she's also the first woman we've hired in our history of being a fire department. He asked me to not put her on the spot and ask her to say anything.
Well, Mona, welcome. We're proud to have you here and proud that you're breaking the glass ceiling in the fire department. So welcome.
I'm really appreciative of this, and I'm hoping to do my best.
I know you will. Thank you. All right. Welcome aboard. Appreciate it. Excellent. All right. And then the next presentation would be by, is it the chief or the captain that's doing this one? Both of you. The chief and the captain are going to do a recognition for a citizen donation to the police department.
Good evening, thank you. No, this one works?
Yep. There you go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Your Honor. This evening, the captain is going to introduce and thank a business owner, part of the Beth Abraham Cemetery, and I'll let the captain explain what occurred. I think it was a very nice gesture from a member of the community.
So as most of you are probably aware, 2016 was a pretty rough year for law enforcement. About 56% increase in attacks, ambush attacks with deaths. So when members of the community and the public reach out to us and want to show their appreciation for what we do, and they supply us with the equipment that brings us home safe to our family, we really appreciate that. Stuart, could you come on up? Stuart contacted us a couple of weeks ago and said, hey, we would like to donate a protective vest, body armor that our officers wear every single day. So we I met with him, and he met with his board, and they donated $720 and bought one protective vest. So from the Ferndale Police Department to Mr. Stewart and Beth Abraham, we would like to present you with this plaque. We hope you display it on your wall with pride. We say thank you very much.
And let Kara get a nice picture of that.
He is also asked to say a couple words.
Please do, and thank you. Welcome and thank you.
Mayor, council members, thank you very much. The Beth Abraham Cemetery was founded in 1912, before Ferndale was a village or a city even. In fact, Woodward was still a dirt road. Past year, it's been a very difficult year for law enforcement. And we felt that we'd like to reach out and do something meaningful for the local law enforcement community as longtime members of the Ferndale community. When the first responders, when the police officers and the fire department leave their homes each morning, they say goodbye, and they're not sure if they're going to say, hey, I'm home at the end of the day. And it was important to us to know that we could make some small contribution to see that happen. I'd like to take the opportunity to express or acknowledge my executive board, Stephen Ribiot and Risha Ring as well, and two former board members, Sidney Dinner and Harry Left, who made it possible through their wise investments so that we could make a contribution of this kind. I have to admit that this is not an original idea. My brother-in-law, Nick Argenziano in New Jersey, has been donating vests to the local police department for years, mentioned it to me, and I thought it'd be a very nice gesture to follow up on that. Whereas our organization wasn't particularly interested in acknowledgement or accolades for this contribution, we just wanted to do it quietly. Captain Palazzolo convinced me that it'd be a good thing if I came in this evening, so I'm here, and the biggest reason is so that I can invite other community members to do something similar in some small or larger part to express their appreciation and acknowledgement of the risks and the rewards that we all receive from our first responders. So we hope that they will follow it up because it's well-deserved, and we just want to express our appreciation. This was one small way we could do so. So thank you very much.
Very much appreciated, sir. Thank you very much. Glad to have you part of the community. Our next item of business for a presentation is a resolution of appreciation to the chair of our planning commission. And she's here, if she would just come on up to the podium so we can embarrass you. Because you're leaving us. So the first thing we'd like to do, Councilman Martin is our liaison to the Planning Commission. He's also on the Planning Commission. So I've asked if he would read the resolution first, and then we'll say a few nice things.
I would be honored. City of Ferndale proclamation honoring Sarah Roediger. Mayor David Coulter, on behalf of the Ferndale City Council, extends the city's appreciation to Sarah Roediger on her dedication to the Planning Commission and the City of Ferndale. Ms. Roediger has served on the Planning Commission as chair since 2009 and was vice chair from 2004 to 2009. Sarah was instrumental in the development of the 2008 Master Land Use Plan and a driving force behind the proposed 2017 Master Plan. Sarah is a credit to our community, and it is with heartfelt appreciation that we celebrate her achievement.
Ferndale, we've said this many times at this table that Ferndale is really blessed with amazing volunteers, lots of people in the community who pitch in lots of different ways. There may be no more challenging job of all of the volunteer jobs than to be on the Planning Commission and to chair the Planning Commission. A lot of tough stuff goes there, and as we're going to hear tonight, you had another difficult and challenging task that you guys always took with professionalism and with the best interests of the residents and the city at heart, and I can't thank you enough. I'd be more than welcome to let you say a few words if you would like.
Sure, just I guess a couple. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure working, I think, with all of you over the past, 13 years I was on the Planning Commission total. I think the day after I moved into Ferndale, my second day I came in and applied for the Planning Commission. I knew it was what I wanted to do, and it's what I do during my day job, but it's at the nighttime in my own community that it was really the most impactful for me. So it's been a pleasure and honor to work with all of you, and I have no fear. I know Ferndale's in great hands with everyone here, and maybe someday if our paths cross again, maybe I'll find myself on a Planning Commission again, but thank you. It's been an honor, and it's with sadness that I'm stepping down from the Planning Commission. But
and come on up, and we'll present you the proclamation. Dan, I'll ask you to join me as our liaison, so that Kara can get a nice picture. Where is she going?
Rochester. In Rochester.
Do they need is there an opening on the Rochester Hills Planning Commission?
She's the top dog over there, right? In the planning department. Can I just add on some
Please
accolades?
do, as our long-time liaison to the Planning Commission.
I learned a long time ago through my job how important it is to have City Council have the trust of the Planning Commission chair. The amount of legal things that the Planning Commissioners have to deal with, as well as the chair managing really difficult conversations with our residents, and having a chair who can command meetings and be very attentive to our residents and protect them, but also making sure the businesses get what they need so that they can move forward to open their business is really sort of a balance. And as I told you before, you have our trust and have always had, and I can't tell you how appreciative having you there has been for us, confidence for everything that comes to council from the Planning Commission. So thank you. Go forth and have fun in Rochester Hills.
Excellent. All right. Thanks. Yeah, one more round of applause. Thank you. Our final presentation is on the Redevelopment Ready Communities Certification Update. I'm not sure who's doing that presentation, actually. Is that going to be Jordan? Okay.
Evening, Council. How y'all doing tonight? Yep, I'm just going to give a quick update on this. We're just starting the new year off with a bang. We know that this was one of the major priorities for the council team to get this certification completed. So this is just a quick check-in to let you know where we're at in the process, and just a reminder for if you need it, to just refresh you what that certification is. So without further ado, just quickly tonight, what I'm going to go over is why are we doing this, what is RRC, and where are we at in the process. Moving right through that, RRC, the Redevelopment Ready Communities Program, is a certification of the state of Michigan that's really aimed at best practices in redevelopment. So it says that, you know, your city has cutting-edge processes, they're easy to understand, they're well communicated, and you're well organized in the way that you approach development. The origins of the program started by an organization called the Michigan Suburbs Alliance in 2005. The state of Michigan acquired that program and took it over in 2011. We were involved in the MSA version of that program, and now we're currently seeking that certification now that the state has taken it over and revamped it quite a bit. So why are we pursuing it? Required to tap into state resources. So right out front there, it's a vital part of the conversation in terms of tapping into state incentives. So of course, we want to make sure that portfolio of incentives is available to Ferndale businesses, both new and old. So that right there is a really compelling reason to do it. But it does have other benefits for us. It gives us access to technical assistance and incentive programs from the state. Serves as a vehicle for coordinating our efforts. It's a nice framework for talking about redevelopment and all the different things that are involved with stakeholders and different elements of that process. And it promotes a closer relationship with MEDC. It's not just about the money, but it really gives us a good vehicle for maintaining contact with the organization, having a great relationship with the state, and making them aware of our redevelopment priorities. So where we're at in that process, when will we achieve certification? We expect to get that done in February 2017, to submit our application, and allowing an 8 to 10 week review period. And that's sort of being really conservative. We expect to have that formalized by April 1st, 2017. What actions remain to complete? We're actually very close, and most of it is wrapped up in the approval of the master plan, which we're looking at for potentially getting done by the end of this month. And then also you can see those items on the right side. It's just sort of a couple housekeeping items, a document to track trainings attended and needed by staff, so just sort of having an inventory of the skills within our own organization. And then an internal marketing strategy, which I've been working really closely with April and Kara on, that coordinates our efforts with the DDA and the Chamber to make sure that all of our Ferndale stakeholders are kind of marketing with the same voice. But it's a pretty short list, and we're almost there. And with that, again, I told you it'd be a quick update. So if you have any questions for me, here I am.
Any questions from council? That's great. So you'll let us know in April or ish?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Keep you posted.
I think when after the MEDC reviews it and accepts our application, they'll be attending here. It's pretty formal.
Yeah.
And offer our certificate and officially
We've been in the program for the last 2 years, engaged with MEDC, and you had to get your master plan approved in order to be certified. That was a core requirement.
Gotcha.
And since that process has been extended for a variety of great reasons, we're near that. We're near the end.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thanks. And good job on the PowerPoint. We're stepping up our game here. I don't know.
We have a good array of templates.
Really nice. I'm telling you. Joe, you must have had a hand in that.
Or maybe Kara.
Or Kara. Oh, teasing.
Look at you taking.
Excellent. All right, moving on now to call to audience. Call to audience is your opportunity to address council on any issue that you like. That's not on the agenda. Please understand that the issues that are on the agenda you can speak to when we get to that portion of the agenda. But anything else that's on your mind, if you're here with us in person and you'd like to come up and address council, please feel free to do so. You get 3 minutes to come on up, give us your name, your address, and anything you'd like to share with council this evening. So is there anyone that would like to address council this evening? All right. Okay. I'm guessing that there are some folks here for other issues, but that's all right. We'll move on then to public hearings. We have 2 public hearings this evening. The first one is a portion of the East Troy right-of-way vacation resolution. Justin's going to introduce that.
Yes. So this item will be familiar as we discussed it in November, but there was an application from Campbell Fresh to expand, as part of their campus expansion, they requested to vacate a portion of East Troy Street. Only the portion that is directly at the end of the dead end right by their property there. It's between Bonner and Farrow Street. And so that would allow them to expand their existing off-street parking lot, encourage more of their employees to park in that lot as they've grown over the years. Parking has been quite tight over there for them. Right now, that street is currently a dead-end street, as I mentioned. And Campbell Fresh also owns the vacant home that is on the south side of the street. So really, the vacation would just allow them to expand the parking lot there. The entire block is zoned for industrial, and future land use map also designated the block as an industrial as well. So at the November meeting, essentially the process, as you're familiar with, requires council to schedule a public hearing, and so that's what we're here for today. The notice was posted and followed the correct process. I did not receive any comments from any of the neighbors or neighboring businesses. I'm not sure if anyone from Campbell's is here this evening, but
he's right behind you, actually.
Oh, great. So.
All right. So with that, and we have introduced this item before and discussed it. So with that, I will open it up to the public. And this is the public hearing now. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council on the vacation of that portion of East Troy? All right. I don't see anyone here, so we will close the public hearing. I will give you an opportunity to say I know you've been here before us before, so I don't know if there's anything new that you would like to add or if council has any questions.
Just thank you. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Okay. Does council have any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
I have been contacted by a resident on East Troy who is having some issues with parking and other related issues based off of the expansion of the businesses there. And we are engaging with Assistant City Manager Joe and working with city staff to address some of the issues with that. So I would just request Garden Fresh Salsa be an active partner, and because it is a neighborhood that is single-family homes with heavy commercial, to address these issues collaboratively so that the quality of life for our residents is improved based off of what's happening there.
Sure, yeah. So point well taken, and we have definitely received some individual complaints from residents as well. We feel that the expanded off-street parking will help. I think it's going to keep some cars off of the street. Honestly, it should really funnel foot traffic off of Troy almost altogether. So we definitely understand the concern, and we have posted announcements and such within the production plan to say, hey, we got a complaint. It's your job to make sure you're not littering, you're not being loud or doing anything to disturb the residents. So
Right. Well, I've asked Joe to take a more holistic approach to convening the stakeholders in the area, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. So a motion would be in order.
Sorry, I do want to raise attention to one thing. So in the recommendation section of the, I guess this is the proposal, it says hold a public hearing on whether to vacate the portion of East Breckenridge right-of-way between the railroad and Hilton Road. I'm not sure if that relates to this proposal or if that's just something we got to...
No, it should say the portion of East Troy.
Yep.
There's a typo?
Right. Correct.
Okay. I would think so. We're not talking about Breckenridge. I don't see that
Yep, I'll
mistake in here.
put a motion. I move
Okay.
that the City Council, after notice and holding of a public hearing, resolves to approve and adopt the submitted resolution to vacate the portion of East Troy Street right-of-way between Bonner and Farrow Streets with the noted amendment under the recommendation section of changing East Breckenridge to East Troy.
Is there support?
Support.
Moved by Piana, supported by Leaks May. Now, any other discussion or questions? All right, Marnie, would you call the roll, please?
Council members Polika,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
and Mayor Wolf.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Appreciate it. Thank you, Justin. The next public hearing, we have a second public hearing, and that is on the St. James Living Special Land Use application. And Justin, you're going to introduce that item as well.
Correct.
Excellent.
So as the mayor stated, JS Senior Living is requesting special land use on behalf of the Archdiocese of Detroit for proposed senior living at the St. James Catholic campus around 22111 Woodward. This has been an application that started a few years ago, and since that time, some players had changed hands and different architects and things like that. So the JS Senior Living brought forth this application a few months ago to the Planning Commission. Planning Commission discussed some concept revisions to the plan there, and then also held a public hearing recently as well. So if you can remember, way back when, the site was originally zoned C2 and then rezoned R3 to permit senior living facilities. So since that time, new management took over the development process, revised the site plans. Site plans now call for 103 units on site, provided more detail on landscaping, a new canopy on the main school building, some new entries and things like that. But the primary reason that the application was revised was the convent structure, former convent structure that's on it's the westernmost building closest to West Hazelhurst. In reviewing the building and trying to rehab that facility, the developers found that due to some foundation issues and some water damage, they would be unable to use the existing structure as is. So the new plans call for about a 9,200 square foot building to replace that building. In speaking with the architects and the plans presented to the Planning Commission, there was definitely a lot of questions from the public and Planning Commission, and very valid questions regarding how that new building would look. Does it meet the architectural character of the neighborhood? Does it meet the historic character of the existing building? So there were some plans presented at that Planning Commission meeting and then revised based on some of the Planning Commission's feedback to incorporate making sure the brick that's included actually is similar to the actual structure that's there now, updating the windows to align and make it so that if you see this building right now on West Hazelhurst, the facade is pretty welcoming from the street, and some of the changes, including adding an arched entryway, reusing some of the existing shingles from the roof, existing roof, and incorporating those into this new design, are also there. So they're the developers made a good faith effort to try and just match the existing character of the building. So that was the primary reason for the special land use revision, and so that's why they're here for you today. The Planning Commission, as I said, did hold that public hearing in October. The Planning Commission approved the site plan, 7 yes, 2 nays, and recommended approval of the special land use application as well. And so since that time, there were some conditions, as I mentioned. Staff has been working with the architect to ensure that those conditions were met. You'll notice the one condition that we're still working on is just providing an easement agreement for the alley, just to allow for city emergency vehicles to still access that alley. And we're, I think, close to ironing that out as well. But I'm here to answer any other questions you might have.
But first, since this is a public hearing, this is an opportunity for anyone from the public that would like to address council. So first thing we need to do is open the public hearing, and I would ask that if there's anyone from the public that would like to address council this evening on this special land use, to please do so. Come on up, give us your name, your address, and 3 minutes to tell us your thoughts on this special land use.
So my name's Brian Baby. I'm at 300 West Hazelhurst, probably the one that is most impacted by this construction. My house itself sits next to the parking lot that would be used by the facility. My garage sits in that parking lot, and that is my access point. Originally, the Planning Commission excuse me, had wanted to close the west entrance off of Hazelhurst and close that off to minimize traffic flow onto Hazelhurst, exiting and entering the facility. I have spoken with Justin, and I've spoken with the developers. My plot actually has an easement access there, so they would not close that. I had asked them to, maybe work with me in regards to deeding that over and putting up a barrier wall along that way so that it would really not impact the property value as much. We're basically going from a building that was designed to be a school, hours of operation, 8 to 3, very minimal impact in the evening. So I have some concerns with that. I have some concerns with the parking lot lighting. Currently, there is one light in the parking lot right now. It illuminates pretty good. They want to put, I believe, 12 lights in, which is a little concerning considering that light is going to be bouncing off the carports and more than likely, reflecting back onto my house. And I also had met with the developers in regards to working on a improvement to the fence line. I had asked for a privacy fence to be installed utilizing the existing fence posts. Unfortunately, they're not capable of doing that. They want to plant arborvitaes, which would now take up space within my yard, which I don't have a very big yard, so nor do I really want to have to maintain and burlap arborvitaes every year and, dig new holes to replace the ones that die, as arborvitaes do. So, as a resident of the area, I'm one that I encourage my son to go out and assist our neighbors, whether it be with their lawns, their garbage, things of that nature. I myself do it. I first want to go out there and help somebody shovel the snow. I love being a part of the community, but I'm concerned that this is going to impact the value of our property and, just our overall peace and quiet at home. And, I don't want to leave the community. My father has purchased the house back in '93, and now I'm there with my children. And we moved here from Royal Oak, and we really feel at home. And I really would like, they have been open to listening to me, but I think it's just listening. I'm not seeing a lot of action. I think that the development of the structure itself, currently the structure itself that they're looking at tearing down is 2.5 stories. They want to put something up that's 3.5 stories. That's pretty imposing, when the houses all around it are 2 stories at the most, 3 if you count mine with a walk-up attic. So, that's kind of concerning. For us as residents along the street, we're concerned with traffic flow. We just had new speed bumps put in. That was a fantastic move because it's really cut down on the speeding on the street. And, now we're going to actually increase traffic yet again on the street. So these are all, I think, valid concerns that I'm bringing to you. And I'd like to see, maybe some redevelopments with these plans to, take into consideration the neighborhood itself. They have done a good job on redesigning some of the buildings, but I'm still apprehensive. So, thank you all.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? Good evening.
Hi, how are you? My name's Phil Elam, 321 West Hazelhurst. Mike and I live a little kitty quarter for Brian. And what I find so encouraging, and hopefully this mode of encouragement can continue to address Brian's issues, is that it's so great that they actually listened to us previously with regards to the brick and the arch and the reusing the tiles on the roof. I mean, those are specific concerns that we mentioned that were definitely in our heart, and to see that, wow, they're actually taking our words and our concerns into consideration. So hopefully that will continue with regards to Brian, and that they will continue to work with us and our concerns, because, as Brian has stated, this is like a generational community, and hopefully his kids will take over when he's there, when he's gone. So I think if we can continue in this mode, that everyone could definitely be happy, and the value and the character of the community will survive. So hopefully we'll keep moving forward and address Brian's issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Bill Fader. I'm at 311 West Hazelhurst, almost but not quite directly across from Brian. And certainly Brian's concerns are extremely valid. He has a vested interest in what they do right next door to him, kind of this far from his side door on his house, basically. And I do hope that the developers, as they continue their job, continue to listen to Brian and do everything they possibly can to address his concerns. As an older gent, I have lived in my house for, it'll be 20 years next August, and I love the neighborhood. I am very content there. I feel very safe. I love to walk in Ferndale and ride my bike in Ferndale. I think it's pretty cool that maybe a senior citizen's residence might go in almost across the street from me, and I'm thinking in the back of my head so I would hate to see the school building and the convent just stand there empty any longer than they have. And I do remember the impact that the alternative learning or alternative high school had on the neighborhood as far as traffic and noise goes, and debris. And I also remember the Edison School with their 800 students, I believe, mostly being driven to school by their parents. Talk about traffic, my gosh. And I don't think that the senior facility will have that kind of an impact on traffic or noise or debris in the neighborhood. But thank you for listening.
Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Anyone else who would like to address council? Good evening.
Hello. I'm Mike Boyla. I live at 321 West Hazelhurst also with Phil. And I know that one of our other neighbors, Judy Palmer, who couldn't be here today because she had a doctor's thing, she couldn't be here. But she voiced a concern that Brian and everyone else on the block has, and that is the lighting being graduated so much. We don't need to land planes across the street, obviously. So I know that somebody said before that once the lights go up, they're up, and there is no dimming them or adjustments. So we do remain concerned, especially since there's going to be a lot of carports. It's like the light is really going to either bounce off the carports, which to Brian's point could aim the light right at his house, or it seems like it kind of defeats the purpose because he won't be able to see the cars anyway because they'll be covered by the ports. I'm not sure why they need so much lighting there. I suppose there's security issues and stuff they have to be mindful of, but if there's directional ways to keep it where it needs to be so it doesn't just illuminate the entire street, and that would be helpful because we have a street light right in our right at the end of our driveway, and that shines in our house. So I can imagine him having 12 in effect right next to his house. So that could be very, a big difference. Could be disruptive. So I don't know how to judge that because I don't know how you guys manage that, but that's our concern.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to address council? Good evening, Father.
My name is Paul Chateau. I'm the priest at St. James. And I just have a couple of remarks that are pertinent to the moment. In the mid-'70s, I was at the parish as an administrator, and there's been a great evolution in our community here in Ferndale as well as in our church. And I'm learning some things that are pertinent to this discussion. The next step in our convent, which is on the outside, is to board up the windows. There's a lot of wood rot. We're having some roof problems. There is damage because of the water. The cost of repairing that is in excess of $400,000 to get it usable for what I don't exactly know. It was formerly a convent for religious sisters who taught in the school. We have many issues, among them trying to keep a little heat in some of the building of the school, which is exorbitant because some of the windows don't work. And the next step, since there is limited heat in that building, is once again boarding up those windows. And the school has been empty since 2009. How long can we go before there is so much depreciation? I mean, the roof has some problems. When they built the facility, tile roofs were appropriate. We just spent $16,000 to touch up the roof in the church. And because there's a lot of problems with roof leaking, and those tiles, given the freeze of the north here, are very fragile. We have plaster falling in the church, and the fix for that is something in the neighborhood of $30,000. Well, we're a smaller community, and we simply don't have a legitimate use, and we certainly had a lot of reasons to seek the best use possible in taking into account the community. And we are part of the community in a major way. And so I bring this up because there's obviously give and take in a lot of areas, and I certainly resonate with the fact because at our other campus in Oak Park, we have charter school, and there's a lot more debris, there's a lot more traffic, and having had some experience in senior living, it's much more modified than other uses. My input is one of self-preservation. Make no doubt about that, because money talks, and when you don't have it, I can assure you, we just got a heating bill, half of our income for the month, and it can't go on. And after this many years of give and take, it's time to do something, or the board will go up, and that's the kiss of death in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Seeing no one else, we'll close the public hearing portion. And now this is council's opportunity to ask questions or make comments.
If I may, through the...
Dan first, and then Greg.
Justin, can you give us an update on where we're at with the easement issue since the Planning Commission met, or where we are today?
Sure. I think, as the resident stated, the western ingress-egress was proposed to be closed, but in conversations with the resident and the developers, with the language in the easement, that would stay open. That ingress-egress would stay open. So the developers have reconfigured the parking lot a bit so that there's less of a conflict with the garage that the resident has access to. Regarding the easement, I think it's sort of a private property matter, but it seems to have been ironed out as far as that goes.
And the address, I understand the issue around the garbage has been addressed by moving the dumpsters?
Correct, yes. So that was one of the key issues brought up at the Planning Commission meeting. The dumpsters are now moved closest to the school, to the primary building, so there won't be people, there is a cafeteria proposed on site, and so there won't be food being brought all the way to the lot line, essentially.
And has there been any change to the lighting configuration since the Planning Commission?
Yes, and that's one I wanted to cover too. So the applicant submitted a photometric plan as we require for all site plans, and the plan is conforming to the ordinance. So all lights are required to be shielded and directed downward. Anytime that, so how we measure photometric plans is through foot candles, and so at residential lot lines it can only be, I believe it's a 0.1 foot candle. And so what we do after every project is completed, when they're trying to get their certificate of occupancy, we go out there and do a light meter test. And so if that light meter test doesn't match the site plan, then lights do have to be removed and changed and brought to what's set on the plan. We actually had to do that for 2 different recent projects, and so we're definitely cognizant of that, and we adhere to the ordinance. So
Can you just help me understand, 0.1 foot candle, how does that compare to like a street light that most of us are used to?
Street lights are much higher, probably, I want to say between 4 and 6 foot candles. So essentially the exterior lighting ordinance is as confusing as it can be. It doesn't allow for more than, I believe it's a 4-to-1 foot candle ratio. So it factors in that you're not all of a sudden just walking into the dark, so there's a gradual decrease from 4 to 1, but in this case it would go down to 0.1 once you hit the lot lines surrounding the property.
And finally, I just want to confirm that the applicants agreed to allow the Historical Society to go through the building before it's demolished.
Correct. I sent introduction to the Historical Commission, and we'll follow up and ensure that before any demo happens that they have ample time to come in and grab whatever they'd like.
Thank you. Those are my questions for now.
Go ahead. Councilman Paulica.
Thank you. You covered a couple of those for me. I did want to touch back on the lighting, though. There is the opportunity for lighting to actually be lower. You have to use more units, but you're not lighting air. Rather than have a 25 or 30 foot pole, you could have, 10, 12-foot poles that are attached to the carports, so to say. Is that an opportunity for the developers in looking at that, just so that there's not so much light being shown all over the place?
Sure.
LEDs cost next to nothing, these days. So you're really just paying for the additional units. Parking. How many spaces are being dedicated per unit?
I believe with the ordinance, the requirement is for senior living facilities, 1 per unit.
Okay. And where is visitor parking going to be handled? And is that going to become an issue for Hazelhurst and Marshall and any of the surrounding streets come Sunday Mass?
Sure. I might allow the applicant to answer some of the more operational questions, but it's my understanding that the entrance off of Woodward will serve as a one-way into the property, and so there is sort of a drop-off area to the main primary school building. And then I'm not sure if there's specific, I believe some of the parking along the church area would be designated visitor, but I'd let the applicant probably discuss that. But that was one of the big items that was discussed at the Planning Commission, is that there was even a drop-off area, I believe, on West Hazelhurst, sort of at the middle of the school building, that I think when it was a school, it was used as a drop-off area, and that was conditioned to close off.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about vehicles parking. I don't want the residents in a year after it's been built.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want residents coming back saying we need an RPZ because 80% of our spaces are being taken up by people who are visiting. Not that we don't want people coming into town. I just want to make sure that there's enough spaces to support the traffic that are going. Not that I'm big on parking lots either.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I guess the only other thing I would add, I believe in the business model, and the applicants can discuss more of it, but they are anticipating every resident having a vehicle as well, which would free up parking for visitors as well. But
I can ask a tangential question related to that. Isn't it true that the ordinance is set around the parking 1-to-1 is because, in fact, most seniors in assisted living do not own cars?
Correct. Okay. Correct.
I think I read something regarding the dog park and removing a fence, and now that because of that fence, the dogs would not be able to be off leash. They have to be on leash. And my question is, what is?
I'm talking to myself.
Okay.
I apologize.
And my question is that's not originally what the dog park was brought about. That's not the reason why we have it. And I'm curious as to what's going to happen. I mean, people can walk their dogs in the community. The purpose of the dog park was to...
Correct.
Yeah.
That was another item at the Planning Commission, and it was always sort of an unofficial dog park. There was one of the requirements, and in our landscape ordinance, that the fence would be removed and replaced with some actual landscaping. It's probably not shown on your site plan there, but there is a walkway proposed for residents and anyone who wanted to walk by. But it is private property, so the dog park was good while it lasted. We have
goodness.
We have a real dog park.
Yes.
Yes, we do. But all right. So speaking of fences, can you talk a little bit about the reason we couldn't do a fence there versus the arborvitae, and why we're doing arborvitae and all that?
Along the west property line. There is an existing chain link fence there, I believe, and so there wasn't a requirement in the site plan to add an additional fence there because there was something existing. The developer did, in good faith, offer to do the arborvitaes there instead, but there was not a specific requirement to add a new fence there.
By the Planning Commission.
By the Planning Commission or zoning ordinance.
If I may.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at one of the site plans, and I understand the residents' concern about putting the arborvitaes on his own property. He has very little property available. Is there any opportunity to actually put some arborvitaes on the 129.4 foot line, which is kind of dividing the parking spaces from his parking lot, but still allowing the resident access. So the arborvitaes would actually be on the school's property, but it would be a softer, it wouldn't be such a harsh look for the resident to have to look at, this parking lot and all the carports. Do you get what I'm saying?
I get what you're saying. My version of the site plan is a little smaller than I think what you're looking at, but I mean, originally when that curb cut was proposed to be closed, there was a tree and some arborvitaes proposed on that side, but due to that easement agreement is kind of took away that tree and landscaping there. I'm not sure if that's the area you're talking about.
No, I was actually talking about a north-south line of the middle parking spaces. So if you're looking at West Hazelhurst, you have a row of parking, and then you have the two-way driving, then you have 2 rows of parking, two-way driving, and then the north row of parking. If you go to the west of that, there's kind of a courtesy driveway that they've created for the owner so that he could access his driveway. Is there any chance that plantings could be put along that line instead of his property line?
That if the applicant would be interested, I mean, that would probably require them to add a curb as well. Some land, or I guess a berm essentially there.
Kind of, yeah.
I have some questions. But first I wanted to say, I love this project. I have said, I've been on the Planning Commission when this first came to the city. I love that the church is being innovative in order to help, make the church thrive in Ferndale. I love that we're repurposing a vacant site, and it's going to be for housing, and it's going to be for seniors, which is definitely a type of housing we need. Really fully committed the city with incentives to help bring this project to life, to offset the gaps of remediation of the building. So I have to say I'm pretty disappointed that this project comes to council as a demolition, when along the way the premise was a win-win of reusing an architecturally significant building. I'm not saying historic because we don't have a historic commission or a historic designation, because we don't have a lot of contiguous historic properties where that would make sense from a district standpoint. And so my questions are around some of the details of bringing it to council for a special land use, what's it called? Revised special land use. I'm not sold that the building needs to be torn down, and the evidence for me is inconclusive that demonstrates that the building should come down. And so my questions surround the conversation on that. But most importantly, I was on the I'm still on the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, and I bring bigger questions to the table of our OPRA, the Obsolete Property Reinvestment Act, which says that we were providing OPRA incentives to remediate the existing structure, not use those dollars to demolish it. So in conjunction to the revised special land use, I have questions about the items in the incentive package that we approved on council that doesn't say demolition of a building anywhere. So if council decides to move forward with the demolition, I have a feeling that we need to revisit our OPRA incentive, because the payback period and what we're giving is for the entire structure, not the demolition part. So to me, that's a big issue that needs to be addressed, at least for me, proven that that doesn't need to be changed. So for me, that is going to be, unfortunately, a delay. I also think that I need some evidence that from the architectural firm, and I understand they're new and they have different ideas coming in to make this project work. And your pro forma is all about having the number of units for your payoff and your return on investment. Totally get that. But I don't see in the Planning Commission packet any engineering documents or outside firms documenting or confirming that there was foundation structure problems on the building, nor anything about water damage. It looks like it was hearsay. And I'm not willing to give up a an architecturally significant building for this project until I have more evidence saying that there's no way that this can be used and repurposed as living units for residents. And I'm interested in knowing what the DDA thinks. This is a property in the DDA, and they follow the Historic Main Street program, and I'd like to hear what they think on what they have an opinion on this property as it relates to their downtown development plan, as this property fits in that boundary. And they're not here. They can't answer.
Has the DDA been part of the process?
They were initially, yes. There was some discussion about TIF boundary because this is a property where I think the TIF line, there's 4 or 5 parcels I think that are part of this project, and so that was really the primary discussion with them, just related to TIF and if what would be part of their capture and what wouldn't.
And I don't know if you had an opportunity to look into the issue of the tax credits and if they're affected by the fact that there's a demolition versus a redevelopment. So I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sure. My initial understanding of the OPRA is that because the majority of the buildings on the property would be rehabilitated, that it still qualifies. The OPRA districts are created based on parcels, and so I believe that the school and the former convent are part of the same parcel. But I'm not sure if the city attorney would know if that could be a potential condition of revisiting the OPRA application in light of the demolition, because the demolition was not part of the application at the time.
No, and so for citing the incentive in the application from the Senior Living Center LLC dated May 11, 2016, specifically it says, for the purpose of renovation of the St. James School and Convent, rehabilitation is necessary to counter the following conditions. Number 1, demolition work, complete heating and ventilation system, existing electrical system, necessary interior masonry walls, ceilings and doors, and any all present furnishings. So there's no way that says that the monies will be spent to demolition of a building. So I feel really bad that I feel bad that I'm bringing this forward, but honestly, I feel like due diligence needs to be done on this in order for me to approve a special land use, revised special land use. Because I love this project, but this is about making sure the residents are protected and that the city's protected and that our payback period over our 20, 30-year period on our incentive is correct.
I guess I don't know if that's what you say that your objective is, but I'm curious if your objective really is to preserve a architecturally significant building.
I'm going to fight for it, but I have a window of saying you got to prove that it needs to come down, and I don't think we have any proof that it needs to come down other than they want to put more units in it, which impacts their pro forma and the return on their investment of their investment. But I get that. But for me to say I'm going to give up, something that is something that the building is the character of the neighborhood. It's the character of Ferndale to some extent. And it's a building worth standing up for until proven otherwise.
Well, I don't disagree that it's an architecturally beautiful building. I guess my question, maybe it's to you, Justin, is to what extent the city has the ability to prevent a private property owner from you could withdraw the tax credit, I suppose.
Well, I'm interested in having engineering documentation
So
submitted.
what sort of demonstrated building condition certification are we, I don't want to say allowed to ask for, but are we within our rights to ask for? You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I understand. I would probably punt it to city attorney. I don't know if in other instances a third party tester would, provide a report, and that would be allowable, sufficient.
I see Jordan stepping up as well.
Is the developer here?
Yep.
Hi, everybody. Long time no see. I was kind of looking through the old minutes to try to pull up some of the documentation on the original approval of the Oprah district for this project. One of the things we can certainly do is talk to the developers and seek some inspection reports. I recall at some of the previous meetings that they had those inspections, professional trade inspections looking at the condition, and we will certainly do that. My understanding is, and I will absolutely double check this, but my understanding is we can't make that a requirement for the Oprah district. Because again, as Justin kind of stated, looking at the project in totality, if for those who don't know, the way the Oprah district works, the Oprah exemption works, you draw the district first, which is the area, the geographic area where the abatement will occur. The district includes the entire St. James property, not just the convent. That said, we will have a follow-up conversation. We'll provide that data to you so that you can make kind of your decision if you'd like.
If I may, through the chair, can't we, though, through this ordinance, make it a condition to say that we receive the report at City Hall that the building needs to be condemned and move this through tonight?
My understanding would be you could add, and I guess I'd punt this to the city attorney as well, but my understanding is that you could add any kind of conditions you'd like to your approval within that realm. If you wanted to act on this, contingent.
That way, I think my thought is to limit the, and I respect Mayor Pro Tem's comments, to limit the potential delay, that if they can provide suitable documentation to the city, then this doesn't have to come back here. If they can't, then it would need to come back.
Well, if I may follow up on that, and I understand what you're trying to do, and that is minimize the amount of time and delays that I'm asking here, and I understand that because time is money for an investment project like this. But I think the interpretation of what is suitable is certainly at play here. Why would I be interested in approving it administratively when I'm asking to see it? So I'm interested in it coming back to council for review and discussion. I suspect that it will be very minor discussion depending on what their findings are. If it fits, that demolition is absolutely necessary. Other than that, on the flip side, I'm going to stick with, I would call that Plan B. Plan A, whatever happens, I am supportive of the, because I'm trying to provide boundaries and what I'm willing and willing not to do. I do think the proposed structure that they have for rebuilding has gone through the sufficient discussion with the Planning Commission, and they've tried to do architecturally significant as much as possible. But I'd rather have the existing building and the character of it and its impact on the neighborhood.
I understand that, if I may. Mayor Pro Tem, and I don't disagree with you about boundaries. I just want to do boundaries with minimal impact, and I think the additional condition addresses that in my mind. I'm not saying that's what we have to do. But
I would prefer it coming back to council for review and discussion.
Other thoughts, comments?
I just was wondering if the planner had any, not the planner, the developer had any comments. Just to hear what, based on what they've heard today. Hi.
My name is Paul Dunn with JS Development. Back to the demolition of the convent. It's two. One, it's in rough shape. Demolishing it isn't. We need the building rebuilt to make the project work. There's not enough units there, so tear it down. We met the planning commissions.
Just speak into the mic so we can all hear you. Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, it's we've had it inspected. We did a phase 1, a phase 2, asbestos survey, all that. We had structural people in there. The foundation isn't big enough to hold the new building we need to build. There's a lot of problems in there. And like Father said, if we don't get it approved, it's getting boarded up. It's like the last stop. You know,
So there's no way to retrofit any of the units in there?
No. I have the architect to speak on that and operation manager too.
The issue is the operations and what is a feasible cost relation to income on operations. My company has been involved in the development of 11 senior developments throughout the state of Michigan, from Grand Rapids to Port Huron, from Saginaw to Lansing to the Detroit area. And we have found over many years that the closer you get to 100 units as your minimum number of units, the more difficult the cost to income ratio becomes. And so we've developed our own in-house rule of thumb that we absolutely won't do a new development of less than 100 units because the numbers just don't work in that situation. The staffing levels and so on for 100 units is the same as for 150 units, and it's the same for 75 units. So to the extent that your number of units goes below 100, you still have the same cost, but that much less income, and it just starts to not work. So our advice to the developer has been that we need at least 100 units to make this work. A lot of effort was put into trying to fit the necessary number of units in the overall project. Numerous meetings with the architect and the developer, contractor, et cetera, to try to fit that number of units of the proper size into the envelopes of all of those existing buildings. And the biggest part of that problem was the convent, because it's so cut up. Some of the things that make it so appealing exterior, from an architectural point of view, make it very difficult to fit units into it in an efficient way. So getting the total number of units to the required feasibility level financially just was not possible. Every effort was made from a design point of view to do that. Numerous revisions, etc. And the developer was coming to the point of abandoning the project because they just couldn't make it work when they came up with the idea, well, what if we remove this building and rebuild it in a more normal configuration, and we can therefore get units into the building efficiently and use that space efficiently. So that's the reason for the demolition, or one of the reasons for the demolition.
Thank you.
How many units are in that proposed addition? I'm sorry. How many units are in the proposed addition, new addition? Just.
Good evening. My name is Dan Tosh with Progressive Associates Architects. In the new addition, proposed 30 units. 30 units. In addition to what Mr. Varian indicated regarding the operational point of view, on an architectural and engineering sense, the difficulty between adapting that existing convent, which obviously was a different use than we're speaking of here with one-bedroom units, all self-contained with kitchens and full baths in them, which that building did not have, is a spatial arrangement in addition to the current codes that we have to follow for accessibility, which it was indicated before that it's a 2.5-story structure. This entire facility has to be accessible on a design basis by code requirements, and also the energy efficiency of the existing structure does not lend itself to today's standards. So coupled with that and the deterioration that's in the building caused the redesign of that area. Hopefully that answered your question.
What's the square footage of that property now, or the building now?
The existing convent, it's about 5,000 square feet.
So you're increasing it by 4.
plus 4,000 some. Yeah. Well, my position is that I still think we need to take a look at the Oprah incentives before moving and rezoning, because there was a set of expectations put forth by the LLC development team about what the project was, and obviously those terms have changed. But this is a legal guiding document with financial implications that need to be made sure that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted with what the incentive was supposed to cover. In my mind, there's 5,000 square footage that has been pulled into that incentive that shouldn't apply.
I think the only thing I would add, and I think those points are valid too, the only thing I would add is just the intent also of Oprah districts. I think in other cities, I think Ypsilanti is one where an entire downtown was considered an Oprah district. It really does, that's the reason there are districts, is that it can be to improve not only buildings, but also just areas that may be obsolete in general.
Yes, I hear you, but that wasn't the intent of the application that came to council for approval, or the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority.
But for me, I think the intent of that incentive was to help this project happen, and I still like this project.
I love the project.
I know. I'm just saying. I think that I'm talking about the incentive, which is the incentive is to make this project happen. And although this project has shifted in that they have to reconstruct the convent, I'm still supportive of the project and of using the tax credits if it's allowed, unless somehow the tax credit is no longer permitted to be used because there was a demolition. But assuming that it's still allowed, then I would still want to use the tax credit to make this a reality. And so I'm more inclined to Dan's point of making this contingent on whether the tax credit is allowable in a demolition. I think it will be, but I think that would probably require some sort of a review. But notwithstanding that, I'm still supportive of using the incentive to do this project.
We did check with Oakland County and our consultant about the Oprah. If we did demolish the convent, if the ratio per percentage of what we're keeping and rehabbing or demolish, we still fit within the Oprah guidelines.
Do we have that in writing for the city? I mean,
it
needs to be in our agreement,
Okay.
Because the expectations put forth by the LLC of what they were requesting is different from what is. Do you understand?
Mm-hmm.
It's a contractual agreement, and the contractual agreement components have changed.
I understand.
So,
Right.
I mean, I want the incentive too for this project, but I still want some documentation about the foundational problems.
I think that's a fair request, and to your point, I think that, I agree with the mayor in that, yes, the contractual specifics have shifted, but the intent and use
yes.
of that money is the same.
Yes.
Right.
So.
I guess I would just add, if I may, just not to place any value judgment on sort of either side that's kind of talking out, and knowing that I was relatively new to the city when this project kind of came forward, a lot of my early project meetings and reviewing the documents, I could also vouch for the intent of the incentives. A lot of the language in the documents talked about the overall intent and the obsolescence of the property as a whole. Again, that being said, whatever direction the council takes, the staff would be happy to work to provide whatever information that you wanted.
If I may, through the chair, I'd like to make a motion. I would move that City Council approve the special land use request for St. James Living 238 and 241 Pearson and 22111 Woodward Avenue to permit senior living facility with the conditions and findings that are in the proposal, in addition to adding a condition that the developer supply documented proof that the convent requires demolition.
And will that come back to council?
If it's not met. If it's met and they provide proof to City Council, it wouldn't need to.
I'm sorry, so could you reread the additional language again?
Yes, I didn't have it written down. Just adding the condition that the developer provide documented proof that the demolition of the convent is necessary. So if that's not met, then the ordinance wouldn't be valid.
I guess my only question is, I'm hearing them say it's sort of this combination of the deterioration of the building and the need to have a certain number of units.
Correct,
So-
and to
so
meet
I'm
the...
not sure what kind of proof it is that they would provide in that.
That's what I heard that the mayor pro tem was looking for. I don't know, I'm not a developer.
So I'm
They
not
could also-
sure
could
what we're
submit their
asking
pro
them to
forma.
provide.
Have they submitted their pro forma to the city for review? Because that is something that cities can request to review.
Be glad to submit that, but like I said, the project's not hinged on us demolishing it because it's condemned. We need a bigger building to make the project work. Get the units as we
That's
talked
a
about.
different, if I may through the chair, that's a different argument. I mean, it's a contingent argument to the other one that you're saying the building can't be saved.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yes.
And I think that was where I was anchoring my argument. I know that's where I was anchoring my argument on. You've got proof the building can't be saved. And in addition, we need more units to make it work. I didn't hear or.
Well, what proof do you need to say it can't be saved? It's pretty broad.
But to be honest, it's not my business. Whatever satisfied, I'm not a developer. You know, whatever documentation that we need to say that says, yeah, the building needs to be demolished in order.
You can get an
to move
inspector,
forward.
or an outside external inspector. You can get an engineering firm to confirm it.
Any of those would be fine for me.
Yeah. Those
So-
are common things to request.
But if it can be saved and my project can't go forward,
I hear you, but with all due respect, the argument went the other way up until halfway through our conversation tonight. That's what I was anchoring on. The building can't be saved. The building can't be saved. I think that makes the other argument unnecessary.
it's a combination of both.
I don't think that was clear in the beginning of your
Yeah.
presentation. I'm sorry.
I hear what you're saying. If the building has to be demolished, will we support the project going forward? What I'm saying is that I don't think there's been enough due diligent evidence provided to the city other than what you're telling us. I want documentation saying that the building is so structurally damaged, other than you coming to the Planning Commission and saying it is, that there's actually a record saying what the damage is. Once we have that, I understand and you share your pro forma with the city and our staff, then I think I would be very open to moving forward with the rest.
And really, this is all about trying to avoid a delay. If there's documentation that can be provided, you don't have to come back to council. They'll let you get started earlier.
Can that documentation read the structure will now support retrofitting the new building on top of it?
Say that again?
I don't know.
The structure, the existing structure, will not support the new building being added to it, converting the old structure into the new building.
I'm just looking for evidence that supports the argument that the building needs to be knocked down.
Well, that's not totally what we're saying.
So that statement that you just made regarding the additional structures on top of the
Existing structure.
existing structure, you obviously had someone evaluate that?
We did, the architect and the engineer. that
Okay.
We cannot retrofit the existing
Okay.
foundation to support the new building that we need to put on the site.
And is that information that can be shown maybe to?
Yes, we can have the architect draw it up, do an overlay, and with the old versus the new.
Not exactly what my motion
Yeah.
says.
It'd be hard for staff to determine if that
Right.
is satisfactory.
I hear you.
Right. I just get the feeling that because they need more units, they're willing to make this building less sound than it is in order to get their units. And I'm willing to stand up for this architecturally significant building. I love this project. I want it to happen, but I'm just not sold that this is worth it for this project.
All right, for the sake of argument, I'm withdrawing my motion. What is acceptable to give them to move forward? Because I do want this to move forward, and I do not want to delay.
Well, I have asked for an outside engineering firm or inspector written documentation.
But theoretically, it comes back and says, you could save the building, it's not going to meet their business plan.
Right.
Where does the council move on that?
That's what I think I suspect we're headed.
Yeah, I do too. That's why I don't want that's a deal killer, so we need to discuss that.
It is a deal killer, but I want to see their pro forma too. I think the city should have an ability to look at it and look for any other options to see what we could do to make this project work.
In the current building.
in the current building.
But I'm hearing there's no way the current project works in the new current building, regardless.
I'm willing to ask them to go back to the table and work with city staff to figure it out.
And I'm not sure our city staff should be in the position of telling a developer what, whether their pro forma is realistic. I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't be able to evaluate pro formas, but
I think we need an
dictating
opportunity to evaluate.
Is the reason for the pro forma to see if the project's successful or if the amount of money the project's going to make?
I think the project is successful. I know there's other type of incentives out there to help, renovate an existing structure, and so on top of the Oprah, right? Because it is senior living, it's probably lower income. There's probably other incentives to bring to bear on that. That perhaps haven't been explored.
well, my reaction to that is we've been studying this project and this parcel for over a year.
2 years,
As the
actually.
father has said, it's been vacant for 8, going on 9 years. This is a significant piece of property on a high visibility area of Ferndale with a perfect project to be there. And I understand the passion of wanting to save a significant building, but I'm supportive of the project as it's proposed, because I don't think they're going to be able to give us a document that says this is a condemned building that must come down or can't be used for anything else. And I think I'm comfortable asking for whatever documentation makes us comfortable that this project will work. But I want this project to work, and I'm personally comfortable with what's. With the project, with whatever conditions people want that are realistic to show that the building, as the gentleman said, that the building can't be reconfigured to meet their pro forma, and we need this project to work.
Yeah.
And I credit the developers and the architects for doing as much revision and changing to make it a very attractive building, and notwithstanding some of the issues, which I'm still concerned about lighting primarily,
Yes.
And that is still a concern to me, but notwithstanding that, for me, it's time to do this project. But I can't make a motion.
I'll make the motion. I'm sorry. I'll make the motion as it's written. I move that we support, the City Council approve the special land use request for St. James Living, 238 and 241 Pearson and 22111 Woodward Avenue to permit a senior living facility with the following terms and conditions, findings and conditions as documented.
Is there support?
And is that with it coming back to council or doing administrative, just to be clear?
To be clear, no, it's not coming back to council if it's approved.
Is there support? No?
I really want this project to work as well, and I understand Mayor Pro Tem's concerns. But even if it comes back saying that this building, even if we find out that the building does not have to be demolished, too, like you, Mayor, I still want this project to work. I love this project just as she does. So,
I'm going to say I support Councilman Martin's motion for the very reason that I want to ask this question. What would happen should it come back to say that that building is completely savable? What can we do at that point? I'm curious to know. Or what do we think that we could do at that point? Because I don't think we can do anything. I think we're delaying the inevitable. Even if they came back and said the building is structurally sound, it could be revitalized, I still think they have every right and every ability to pull a demolition permit.
I believe you're correct.
I'd hate us to just delay that for the inevitable.
Would it be delayed by just another council meeting?
I don't mind delaying it if I understood more clearly what it is that you were asking for and how that would affect our decision. Because I hear, initially at least, I heard you asking for something proving that the building was not rehabitable. And I hear them saying that that's not the sole criteria here. And so then I'm getting to Greg's point is even if it's rehabitable, they can pull a demolition permit. So I guess I'm just not clear what documentation would be helpful for you to agree with this project.
I've also heard the point about, we approved the Oprah and now the terms of the project have changed. And I don't think that has any impact now. I understand Mayor Pro Tem's concern, where she's coming from regarding this issue. We've had similar discussions in the past regarding Oprahs and brownfields, and we need to have a conversation in the near distant future about what requirements as a city we want to place on people developers, properties that are asking for these funds. I don't think we're going to solve that tonight. I'm very excited about this project, and I want to address everyone's concerns, especially those that are, people who are living, right next to the project or across the street from the project. I'm very happy that you, as a developer, want to use existing design elements of the building and existing materials from the building into the new construction. There is a precedent for the creation of a non-continuous historic district where certain buildings within an area of the city can be deemed historic. It doesn't have to be all within one block or 2 blocks. This idea has been brought to council, not this council, but in the past many years ago. But for a variety of reasons, the idea was squashed. I'd like us to revisit that idea. And have that conversation. But again, I don't think we can have that tonight. I think we're delaying the inevitable.
So, well, my intent here was to make sure that the developer is submitting the appropriate documentation to show evidence of why their argument, because it feels like that they were banking on a building that wasn't rehabitable or was able to be rehabilitated. So that is my main concern. I know that they want to add more units in there for their pro forma and the return on investment, but I feel pretty passionately that this building is part of the DNA of that parcel, and so I just wanted to stand up for it tonight.
Well, we have a motion and a support. Is there additional comments?
No, I just want to say the Mayor Pro Tem's comments weren't lost on me, certainly, and I came to a similar conclusion that Councilman Pollica did. I don't have a clear vision of what bringing back and what we would bring back that would make any change in the path or the outcome. And this is the right project for that property. This is a level of housing that we desperately need in this city. And it's been on the books for a long time, 2 different management companies now involved. I'd like to move forward.
And I also want to say all those same things. Again, I go back to, I love this project. It is a complete, utter disappointment that we lose another building in Ferndale, even though it brings a good use to our area. I am concerned about our Brown Oprah incentive. Already approved, and I think that needs to be reviewed, and I would feel more comfortable if that was included in the amendment in terms of those documents from the inspectors or anything like that, but it also includes a review from the administrative staff.
But if I may ask through the chair, to what end? It's still within the spirit of the use of that money. I don't hear objection to using that money. It's just the terms of the present project have changed. It doesn't mean it won't qualify in its own right. in its
Yes,
current
but
form.
you should still change it. We know that some of our incentive contracts through the BRA over the years, that projects change and the terms of the contract don't get fulfilled or for some other reason. And so I just want to make sure, again, that the agreement is reflective of this revision to this project.
I mean, is that something that we can administratively ask staff to do? Yeah.
I would feel more comfortable with that, and I hear you. You know, I don't want this project not to happen as I take my last stand on the building. So I hear what you're saying.
I do want to address the lighting issue again, and I feel
That is a concern.
I feel a little more comfortable just knowing I too have a street light right in front of my house. I know how bright that is. I feel a little more comfortable knowing that's a 4 and this is a 0.1, so we're not in the same magnitude. But I guess I don't know what I'm asking you other than to express my concern, and as you do your lighting study, even if we can be made aware of that, and just know that that's something that we'll want to monitor, and we expect you to be monitoring closely, because that to me is a legitimate. Not that the other ones weren't, but that's a legitimate concern that I think the residents in that neighborhood have a valid reason to be concerned about.
Absolutely. Definitely legitimate. And really, earlier this year, we did go back to a development and say, you are 10 times brighter. You look like a spaceship, essentially, compared to what's on our plan that is stamped and approved. And so they did have to go back. And this would be a similar instance. And we'll definitely talk about, I can't remember off the top of my head how tall the parking lot lights are, but we'll go back and revisit that too and make sure that those make sense for the neighborhood.
Great. Thank you. Any last comments or questions?
I just want to let Mayor Pro Tem Piana know that, I'm a building hugger. I love historic buildings, and it tears me apart that they have to tear this down. But
I hear you.
I am glad that they are keeping with some of the historical elements and using a lot of the existing materials. So that helps.
All right.
I appreciate the discussion.
And Marnie, would you call the roll?
Council members Piana.
Yes, with explanation. I'll let you vote.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
And Mayor Coulter.
Yes. Thank you. That item is adopted.
I might just say why I voted yes.
Yes.
Because I feel like staff is capable of making sure the developer does the right thing and provides the right documentation.
Thank you.
So the next item of business would be the consent agenda. The consent agenda are items that council considers routine and we enact in one motion unless council removes something from the consent agenda. So let me read the consent agenda now. Item A is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held December 19, 2016. Item B is the approval to adopt the attached poverty exemption guidelines and poverty exemption application as required under the General Property Tax Act. Item C is the approval of the Allied proposal of $4,950 to install a steel beam support in the cable TV IT room, and that the DPW director be authorized to sign the proposal. Expense to be charged as noted in the minutes. Approval of the specialized services contract for fiscal year 2017, and authorization for the mayor or designate to sign the contract. Item E is the approval of the special event permit for the 2017 The Front Porch on Saturday, June 24th. 2017 from noon to 6 p.m. as detailed in the special event director's summary to reflect the consensus of the special events committee contingent upon the listed conditions. Item F is the approval to authorize the city manager to begin recruitment and fill the position of recreation director left from the resignation of Jill Manchik as submitted by the city manager. We'll get to you in a minute, Joe. And finally, G, approval of the bills and payroll is submitted by the city manager's office, subject to the review by the council finance committee. What's council's pleasure on the consent agenda this evening?
I just have a question regarding the consent agenda. I have a question regarding one of the items here, but I don't think it needs to be.
Okay, we can speak to it after a motion is made then? Yep.
I would move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, moved by Martin and supported by Piana. Now, discussion on the consent agenda, and we'll start with you, Councilwoman Leach May.
Yes, regarding a consent agenda item B, regarding the approval to adopt the attached poverty exemption guidelines. I think I just wanted to know a little more about that. That's something that that's done every year, annually, and do these exemptions, these guidelines change at all, or is this?
That's a great question.
I just have
and
some,
our finance
just
director, yeah, that's a great question, and maybe our finance director can give
They
us.
are pretty standard guidelines. We use the federal poverty numbers, so as those change, we update the form every year. People fill out the forms, you have to submit a lot of documentation with it, and then the assessing office, which is Oakland County who does our assessing, they go through and yay or nay them based on whether they meet the criteria that are in the exemption.
Now, one of the guidelines regarding the application process was, let me find it real quick. It was regarding having additional assets up to the amount of additional assets in addition to your home, et cetera, of about $10,000, and you could not exceed that. And I was just wondering, is that a guideline because it's really not a whole lot of money? So I was just wondering, is this, considering the cost of living is constantly going up and...
I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I know that they're pretty standard guidelines, and I don't know if that's part of the state law that allows it, because that's kind of what we mirror that off of, the state law that allows the poverty exemption, because otherwise you don't get exemption on your taxes.
Right.
I can find out and let you know.
Because the purpose of this, I think, is to help people, and if it kind of
Yeah,
puts you in the clinch there, it doesn't really help, and
Right. I can tell you that there's probably only 4 at the most residents that really meet the guidelines and are allowed to take advantage of it each year.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions on the consent agenda? I do see Michael. He's here. So, Michael, come on up for a minute. We chatted briefly about this one, but the special event is new. The front porch is new. And as cool as it sounds and as fun as it sounds, sitting here with my fuddy-duddy mayor hat on, I can also envision lots of problems with an event where people just have bands on their front porches, spilling out into the neighborhoods and causing all sorts of noise, and I can only imagine the complaints that we can get. And yet, I've done my research because there's a website and lots of other cities are doing this. But could you just sort of explain the concept of the Porch Fest, I think it's called, and how it will be managed? And
well, the event producer is here. I'm going to actually let him help you because he's the one who actually came to us with this enthusiastic idea. And his name is Michael.
Hi, Michael.
Hello.
I got to believe this is a question you get occasionally.
Well,
does it sound?
in all honesty, this is going to be the debut of a Porch Fest event in this area. We are actually calling it the Front Porch, a day of music on Ferndale porches. To put it in context, it was given birth, this event was given birth in Ithaca, New York 10 years ago, and it has grown to 180 music acts. Now, I don't know if they had 180 porches, but nevertheless, they had 180 acts. This event is really serving as a showpiece and the launching pad for a music TV show that we look to produce with Detroit Public Television in the fall of 2017 called The Front Porch. So the reason why I put it in context is we are looking to start small here in Ferndale. And I should tell you that the reason why we selected Ferndale is we know that Ferndale is all about placemaking and all about creating opportunities, events, and assets that really enhance the quality of life and offers and presents some new offerings for the city. The event certainly fits the character and personality of the city as well. Again, hence why we came and selected Ferndale. So we are only looking to have approximately 25 bands. I shouldn't say approximately. We actually proposed 25 to 30 bands. When we met with the Special Events Committee, there were some questions raised, some of those that you are presenting here. And as I'm sure you know, the city police and fire sit on that Special Events Committee. And they certainly did their due diligence. And Captain Palazzolo, along with Chief Collins, sampled a number of markets and communities and came up with some recommendations that I have already responded to Michael with, saying that we would certainly abide by those recommendations. So I don't know if I've answered your question just yet or your concern.
You touched on what helped alleviate my concern. I saw Captain Palazzolo's letter, and he contacted a number of the other police departments and communities where this has happened. There's been no complaints. That always
Correct.
makes me feel a lot better. Just in terms of, okay, so there's a band literally on the 25 different porches, or could it be 12 houses with 2 bands, or sort of talk about how it works, and then the vision of how is your market the direct neighbors? Are you, how do you market it? What is your vision for the project?
So our intent is to actually solicit 25 host porches. So we will actually communicate to your residents who might be interested in participating in this to lend their porch for that day.
In one particular neighborhood or throughout the city?
So no. So again, in order for us to do this within reason in our first year, without any significant issues, problems, concerns as you posed, we're looking to be just west of Woodward Avenue and in the neighborhoods just south of 9 Mile, beginning possibly from Troy Street, no further south than Marshall, no further west and Central, and then north of 9 Mile, no further than Maplehurst.
That's my neighborhood.
May I ask why not?
We certainly will.
I'm a big front porch, so don't mistake. I'm not
We will put your porch front and center and give you top billing.
My question is just why not pushing some of that towards the east side as well, because I think sometimes the east side feels left out of things that kind of go on in this community, and I just, unless there's some opposition regarding it from east siders, I don't know, but I just would like to see the east siders not always have to come to the west side to enjoy events in the city. I'd like to see some things going on the east side. I was just curious as to why it wasn't there.
Again, because this was the inaugural year that we were looking to do this, and it was also based on the recommendations of the special committees, really confine it to a very specific area in its first year.
I have a question.
Sure.
I love this idea. I go to the Water Hill Music Festival every year in Ann Arbor, and my friends have a porch, and they host. So are your musical acts, I'm going to put them as musical acts, do the homeowners who host, do they get to choose the musical acts for their porches like they do in Water Hill?
The initial intent wasn't for the host resident, the host porch, to actually play a role in selecting which band plays on their porch, but we are certainly open to that.
Okay, because there's a lot of musicians in Ferndale.
Yes.
That I think would like to showcase their talents on their friend's porch, and I think that's an important part of your program.
Yes.
Don't export them and put them on people's porches when the talent is in Ferndale.
No, we certainly will reach out to existing acts and musicians right here in your own backyard, but I think we'll have to kind of cast a little bit of a wider net to get up to the 25
And are you
number.
doing all types of music? Because when
Yes.
you say bands, people think of a rock band or something like that. Are you talking about chamber music, instrumental, any type of music that could be on your porch?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And acoustical, right? Not
it's all
amplified.
acoustical. The actual genre of music will kind of spread all kinds of, the full spectrum of music, from folk, Americana, rock, hip-hop, gospel, chamber music. It could be any of that. But yes, this is essentially an acoustic event. There are not going to be any bands blaring throughout the neighborhood. And that's also why the event, and again, it's modeled after 50 Porch Fest events that happen throughout North America. The event is only, again, I think as you presented, from 12 to 6 o'clock. And then the idea is to extend it to your local businesses and merchants working with the DDA post 6 o'clock, so that it can go on throughout the night.
Yeah. And just assuming that it's a kid-friendly event.
Kid-friendly event. It's not promoted and will not be promoted as an event that encourages any kind of alcohol. We will abide by the city ordinances.
Are you requiring the homeowners to do that, or who are hosting?
We certainly can, but I don't know if we can.
I don't think they would want you to.
I don't know if we can. Well, you'll have to take that up.
I don't suspect at that time of day that that'll be a big problem.
Yes.
But one of the,
So-
let me just say, there's many things I like about it, and one of them is the opportunity to build community. I could see
Absolutely.
neighbors getting to meet neighbors by coming down and listening to a band on your porch or whatever kind of music. So I think it's
And
it's
Mr.
great
Mayor-
for a lot of reasons, but in particular the community. That's why I said, is it marketed in particular to come meet your neighbors?
Yes, and also to encourage walking and biking throughout the community.
Well, I love that.
That's a great. Thank you.
Oh, thank
that's very
you.
helpful.
The support and collaboration we've received thus far is tremendous. So if it's approved, we certainly look forward to a successful event.
Excellent. Appreciate it. All right. Other comments on the consent agenda?
This has kind of a dally in the alley kind of feel to me.
It's different.
Is it?
There's no vendors.
Well, yeah.
It's different.
Well, the original dally in the alley were just people coming out with their
yeah, 20 years ago.
yeah, their tables and selling, homemade jewelry and CDs.
Back in Councilman Polika's youth, I'm sure.
Yes, back in the 80s.
All right. So the consent agenda has been moved and supported. Is there further discussion by anyone in the audience as well? By the way. All right, Marnie, would you call the roll?
Councilmembers Leaks May,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. We have one regular agenda item today, and that is the consideration of the master land use plan resolution. So who wants to?
Mayor, I'd be happy to
Thank
deal
you.
with that. Under the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, the Planning Commission would normally be the approving authority with respect to a master land use plan unless council resolves that it wishes to consider and approve or decline such plan. So this proposed resolution before you this evening would provide that council wishes to see it and wishes to, after the Planning Commission weighs in on the master land use plan, that it would come to council for approval.
So that's the question. Does council want to see the master land use plan before it's adopted? And be the final adopter, I suppose, then.
Right.
Well, technically, if we had objections, it would go back to the.
That's right.
That's the question on the table.
I'm on the Planning Commission, so I get to vote for it either way. I certainly wouldn't object if we wanted to come back here.
I think legally, the Planning Commission is the approver, but I think having an extra layer on council is helpful.
And good for exposure, because it's hard to believe more people see us than the Planning Commission, so it's an education opportunity as well.
You're here.
Then a motion would be in order.
I move that the City Council approve the attached resolution to approve the master plan update after the Planning Commission adoption.
Support.
Moved by Martin, supported by Piana. All right, any discussion?
So we're approving to approve that we're going to approve?
Otherwise, it wouldn't come here.
Otherwise, it wouldn't come back. When do we expect it will come back?
I'm just clarifying.
I get, but the question irrelevant is when will it come back so we actually approve it?
Yeah, the
Gotta love government.
right. The Planning Commission
State law.
hold a public hearing next Wednesday at the regular meeting at 6 p.m. in council chambers for anyone who wants to attend. And so then that would probably be the 23rd here at City Council.
That's where I can voice all my opinions and.
You can come to the Planning Commission meeting too.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I can come and suggest all my changes.
That might delay the City Council adoption, but yes.
Oh, we don't listen to them. They'll listen to me up here.
I'm kidding.
Listen to me there.
All right, thanks, Justin. Any other questions or comments? Marnie, would you call the roll?
Councilmembers Martin,
Yes.
Polika,
Yes.
Piana,
Yes.
Leaks May,
Yes.
and Mayor Coulter.
Yes, thank you. That item is adopted. Moving on to call to council, and we'll start with our county commissioner, who now is here. She wasn't able to be with us during presentations, but
Thank you. Good evening and Happy New Year, everybody. I am officially starting my 8th term as county commissioner this Wednesday. Starting at 5:30. And so if you want to come and see the...
what date is that?
This Wednesday, January 11th, 5:30 p.m. And I welcome everybody to come and see Oakland County government in action. Couple things coming up in this term. So in 2018, we are going to have a parks millage coming before us. And there's going to be meetings here again, and I sat through one with Councilman Polika and City Manager, meeting with the Parks Department of Oakland County, and I'm told that they have a new South Oakland strategy, which is basically saying, we want your votes, but maybe we'll do something in the South End. So...
Eight terms later, nothing changes.
And we are really trying to push them to spend more money in this part of the county. And it's really, really challenging always.
Well, why don't we take the position of South Oakland County communities against transit? If it doesn't directly benefit them.
Well, there's lots of arguments to be made, but I just want to highlight this and elevate it as we're talking about these issues. Okay? So bring it to your attention. Another thing that I do as county commissioners, we put different ballot initiatives, such as that one before us. And the Detroit Institute of Arts, we do pay a millage to support the arts. And part of what we do is that we did mandate that money gets spent in our Oakland County community. And we have senior buses. There's different wonderful initiatives. But I don't agree with some of the initiatives, and I do suggest, I'd love to hear from you. What do you like? What do you not like? I don't love the big trailer piece, which is, the mobile DIA away. I'm not a big fan of that, and I'd rather see more community investment differently. So I welcome thoughts about that. I had the opportunity to tour that when it was at a concert in Royal Oak. So I really want to hear if there's things that they're doing with you or things that you like, so we spend our community investment dollars wisely. I serve on the Area Agency on Aging 1B, and I hope to be reappointed this Wednesday. That's the plan. But we had a dicey situation in that my official term ended on December 31st, and there was a special board meeting called last week on January 3rd, and I had been noticed of the meeting, and then I got noticed that I couldn't come officially, and because I wasn't an official board member anymore. And so they notified me late Friday afternoon, December 30th, that I couldn't come. Timing is everything. So I raised objections to it, saying Oakland County is not going to have a voice at this special board meeting. And unfortunately, our other Oakland County older adult passed away, and we haven't reappointed them. So in any case, despite arguing with support of Oakland County leadership, they went forward with the meeting last Tuesday. without having an Oakland County vote at the table. And as a result of that, Oakland County, we are introducing a resolution this Wednesday at our board meeting, suspending the rules and asking and saying we're going to suspend funding in 90 days. They need to come before us and report what happened, why, because we didn't have a vote on the table. And subsequently, the CEO of the agency resigned on January 4th. So we don't know what's going on. And senior investment in services is important. Oakland County does invest money in taking care of our seniors. We want to know what's going on. And if I can't tell you that, it's not good. So we are acting on that swiftly, quickly. And I did hear from another county today about this matter. So we are not the only ones speaking up. So I'm here to serve you. I welcome thoughts, ideas. I was just at a meeting. We have a laundry list of ideas of how we on the South End can continue to make noise on behalf of all of us. And hopefully, I'd like to see even more money invested in infrastructure from the county, some matching funds. I have lots of great ideas, but I welcome your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Helene?
No, thank you. Congratulations.
All right. Police Chief Collins, anything for the good of the community this evening? How about the fire chief? Anything else from the fire department? All right. Nice beard, sir. All right. Jordan, anything from Community and Economic Development this evening?
One quick item. I just want to take a quick opportunity to thank the members of my department and the DPW. This past Friday, we all got together for a service project. And we tore down the single-car detached garage that has been dilapidated on 3069 Inman for a little over a year. Members of my staff have been trying to navigate the various assistance programs for this resident who is a senior citizen on fixed income to help try to get this garage torn down. It's falling down. The roof was caved in. So our building official, two of our inspectors, our code enforcement officer, and our city planner got together. And I want to thank Lloyd here. The DPW was great assisting, Car Trucking Company for providing a dumpster, and Sakura for accepting the waste. So it was really sort of multi-layered. Everybody kind of put their hands together and took that thing down. So we really appreciated it. We were happy to do it. So just wanted to put that out there.
Great job. Thank you. Yes. Awesome. Love it. Jenny, anything from HR this evening? All right. Okay. Jill, you have to come up. I don't know if you have anything to share, but while you're coming up, one of the items the audience may have seen and I was weeping over was approval to begin the recruitment to fill the position of Recreation Director. So Jill, after how many years have you been with us in Ferndale total? 8 years. Is my understanding is going to stay home for a little while and raise the kids?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that and just make us feel better that
we're losing you. Definitely a very hard decision, but I've certainly enjoyed my time here. I'm forever grateful for this opportunity. I was living out of state when I applied for this job, so this job brought me back home, closer to family, and the rest is history. So like I said, I have nothing but positive things to say about my time here. It's been a wonderful experience, and I really, truly appreciate it. But I'm looking forward to the next chapter in our lives in raising these 3 little girls at home.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. This isn't your last meeting.
No,
right?
I will be here for the next couple of months.
For the next couple of months, so we won't do the sort of the wake thing here where we all say all kinds of incredibly nice things to you. But I will say we've certainly valued your service here and all that you've accomplished at the Recreation Department, and you are going to be missed. But let's save the rest for 2 months.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Now, anything to report from the Recreation Department? Awesome.
The Parks and Rec Master Plan draft is now available for public comment for the next 42 days. Copies will be available at City Hall, at the Coolett Community Center, and on the city website. And feedback can be directed to either the CED department or the Recreation Department. So we encourage anyone that's interested to review that plan and certainly provide feedback.
And then just one thing for you, I want to thank you and your staff, because this past weekend, although it wasn't technically by the language of our requirement for opening the warming shelter, the temperature didn't technically meet that. Renaissance Vineyard Church was doing the shelter week at their church, so we knew that we had a lot of homeless guests in our community, and it was very, very cold. It just missed, I suppose, qualifying and so your staff went above and beyond and opened for the weekend to make sure that any of those guests who were staying at Renaissance Vineyard had a place to be during the day on Saturday and Sunday, and you didn't have to, and you did that at the last minute. So I appreciate it, as do the guests at Renaissance Vineyard.
Thank you. I'll pass that along to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, anything from the Assistant City Manager's office this evening?
Yeah, just real briefly, Monday will be Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and the city offices will be closed, which also means that the city will not be enforcing parking, which also means that we will have signs placed on each kiosk that do communicate that. And Jill, in 2 months, I'll have something nice to say to you.
Thanks. Lloyd, anything from DPW this evening? Okay, great. Kara, anything from communications, community engagement? So you're just...
But probably plenty next time.
All right. We've already had one finance question tonight. How about anything else from the finance department? No. How about from parking? Anything going on in parking that you would like to share? No. All right. Marnie, anything for the city clerk's office?
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
All right. April, anything for the city manager's office?
No, just again, as Joe said, a reminder that we are closed on Monday, January 16th in observance for Martin Luther King Day. And also you'll notice, hopefully the audience has been able to see the staff and council in a much better light, and working through new audio, which was working with the majority of the time, but clearly we have some kinks. This is the very first rollout of the new audio. Oh, look at that. Right on cue. It cuts out. Yeah. That was really good. So we're hoping that this experience allows those who are viewing cable to see us better, see the speakers better, and hear us better once we get these little kinks worked out. But for the most part, we'll be curious to see how we all look on the brand new lighting. I know, right? It's been pretty harsh.
Especially if it's HD TV.
I know, I've glare.
Dan, anything from the league? All right. Councilman Martin.
Just one thing. This month, starting January 27th, running through February 4th, the Blues and Music Festival for Ferndale kicks off. There are dozens of venues and dozens of bands, and all proceeds go to benefit Ferndale Youth Assistance, which I'm on the board of. So please come on out, enjoy some great music. The schedule is on www.ferndalebluesfestival.org. So I'll mention it again at the next council meeting, but just a terrific event. So please attend.
Excellent. Councilwoman Leaks May.
Well, there is a couple things. So it was mentioned earlier, but I had the pleasure of working the warming shelter at Renaissance Vineyard, and that will be my shout out to I said I was going to do a shout out to a community organization, and they provided such a warm and open environment to our resident homeless, and it was just a humbling experience, and I was to be around such a establishment that just shows so much compassion and care for people who are less fortunate. So I just want to tell Jim Poole and his staff it was a wonderful experience, and I appreciate them for what they do and what they've done. Mm-hmm. Also, Happy New Year, and I just want to say that I'm looking forward to working with you all for another year. I'm looking forward to serving this community and working with the staff. Good things to come, so thank you all.
Excellent. Councilman Pollica.
Nothing but Happy New Year, everyone.
Me. I just want to do an announcement for the Citizens for a Fair Ferndale, in particular their Ferndale Inclusion Network meeting. They meet quarterly to talk about their Race in the Community project. It's a great time to meet new people and also learn about organizations who maybe have minority populations in our community, and it's a way to get involved and understand their point of view and increase positive experiences for all of our residents. That meeting is at the Ferndale Public Library, January 17th from 7 to 9 p.m. And that's it. Happy New Year. Can't wait for warm weather.
Right? All right. I guess I'll just share one thing. This Wednesday evening, the South Oakland mayors get together, and we're going to hear from representatives from the RTA about what is next. That's a big question right now, and a lot of folks are talking about it. And so we're going to put our heads together and figure out how we as South Oakland communities can help move that agenda forward, even though the ballot proposal in November was not successful. So I'll come back and share what I learned at that meeting. But the ballot proposal might not have been successful, but our interest in improving public transportation in this region goes on. So,
well, there's a lot of things we can be doing on Woodward, that's for sure.
And with that, our meeting is adjourned.